Hi, good morning, Ella. How's it going?
Good morning, Mustafa.
So last time we talked about the live-in caregiver programs for personal support workers and for child care workers. This week we're going to be talking about the Federal Skilled Trades Program. I have the website pulled up here. Okay. So the Federal Skilled Trade Program is part of the Express Entry system. It's one of the 3 programs that are available under that system. We feel that this is a great program for folks who are in Canada and have the right work experience, along with some other requirements that we'll get into today. So the minimum requirements are pretty simple, actually. You have to have skilled trades work experience. You either have to have an LMIA job offer or a certificate of qualification, and then you must meet the language ability requirements, okay? So in terms of the work experience, they need to have at least 2 years of full-time work experience in a skilled trade within the 5 years before they apply. Now, this work experience can be obtained either inside Canada or outside Canada. But of course, any type of work in skilled trades outside Canada needs to be documented and supported by the right type of evidence. For example, a good work experience letter plus pay stubs, and then any type of qualification and certifications or any education related to the skilled trade that they might have obtained while they were working in a skilled trade abroad.
One point I want to add here is for the equal of part-time work experience for a skilled trade. If you're students and as a student you were using your 20 hours, or because we have many public policies were going on, if you're working full-time, the time that you were working as a student, either is the part-time or full-time, will not consider as part of your skilled trade program.
Yes. When they're talking about part-time work experience, this needs to be while they are not a student, right? So they could have maybe a job in some other category, but then they're also doing a skilled trade part-time. They can count that, but instead of 2 years, they would have to show 4 years of part-time work. But it's a really good point that work as a student while you're in Canada does not count. Now, if you are working as a student abroad, that does count. But inside, if you're a student, your work experience in a skilled trade will not count. Another important thing to note on this topic is that the work experience, the 2 years of full-time work experience will only count after you have met the requirements for that particular skill trade, right? So, for example, we've been talking to a lot of people who are getting on-the-job training, right? And if their trade requires a certificate as a mandatory thing, but they haven't completed the steps to get that certificate, any work experience that they might have had before they got that certificate is not going to count towards this requirement. So it would have to be 2 years full-time or 4 years part-time after they meet the requirements of the skilled trade. And the way you can assess the requirement of a skilled trade is by knowing the NOC code of the skilled trade, going on the NOC website, and at the bottom they show a requirements tab. Maybe we can quickly show.
Yeah, that's a great idea too.
Yeah. So let's see. Recently, we worked with a skilled trade. I'll switch the screen that I'm sharing here. So if you look at this, this is one of the skilled trade. 7.3 is a skilled trade group. General building maintenance work is the building superintendents. So this is the National Occupation Classification website. We recommend you should always use this one, although there are other Statistics Canada has them, but we recommend that you always use this one, the National Occupation Classification website. And here you can see that the employment requirements are showing secondary school education, previous experience, or maybe a certificate in one or more of the trades, or a building operator certificate may be required. So all these things are maybe, usually. None of these are mandatory. but you must meet some or all or a combination of these, declare that you have been qualified to do the job that you're currently doing. It's all the work experience past that date is what counts towards the total work experience requirement here, 2 years of full-time work experience. Here you can see what type of NOC groups are considered skilled trade. So major group 7.2. 7.2, basically these numbers that you're seeing are going to be the first two numbers of your NOC code. So you saw here that the first two numbers of this NOC code is a 7.3. So you go back here and you see that 7.3 is a major group that is a skilled trade, and the category is general trade. Some other groups are supervisors in natural resources, agriculture, occupations in natural resources, processing, manufacturing, utility supervisors, aircraft assemblers. I mean, the list is huge. Even chefs, cooks, butchers, and bakers are considered to be skilled workers. It says here that they will refuse the application if they don't show that the experience meets the description in the NOC code. So what does this tell you, Ala? This tells you that the work experience letter is going to be very important. Do you have any comments on what the work experience letter should include and what it should look like?
Yeah, so the work experience should include the job responsibilities, which is mentioned under your NOC code, but this cannot be copy and paste. But it should be something related. If it's not related, the visa officer most probably is going to refuse. They have to have your start date, end date, position, hourly wage, annual salary.
Yes, and it should be on a company letterhead, and it should be signed by their immediate supervisor. It is quite possible that IRCC may call these folks to verify. That is how IRCC assesses whether your work experience does in fact fit into the NOC code. It all depends on the job description. And so at least if you look here, it shows that you perform duties listed in the lead statement of the occupational description in the NOC code, including all the essential duties and most of the main duties. So what does that mean? If we go back here, it means that these are the main duties. Doesn't have to be all, but definitely some. This particular NOC code does not have a list of essential duties here, but you want to make sure that at least 50% or more of your job description is similar or within the definition of these main duties here. The other thing, next, if we look at it, this is a very important topic right here, Ala, job offer or certificate of qualification. Do you have any comments on this requirement?
Yes, because for the job offer or the certificate of qualification, for the skilled trade, you should have one of either the job offer, which should be an LMIA based, or the certificate of qualification. We give you a very good example of the what was our NOC code that we are presenting now. It was 73210 is a general building and maintenance worker and building superintendent. So these specific NOC code, you cannot get a certificate of qualification as a general maintenance, but in the employment requirements mentioned that you can get a trade certificate or certificate of qualification in one or more of the trades. So if you don't have a job offer which is LMIA based, and then if your job that you're doing is under a trade but is not regulated, you can get a certificate of qualification which is relevant to the trade that you're doing.
This is, every province has its own skill trade webpage. This is Ontario's. And this is a really good resource for you to figure out the requirements for your trade, right? So, for example, if you go to explore the trades, these are the various stages of getting certified, right? So typically it starts by getting a certificate of apprenticeship. So you should either, each skill trade is going to have its own requirement. Some of them require you to have a certain amount of work experience by completing an apprenticeship. Others may require going to school for a program that is related to your skill trade. But you can see that there are certifying exams involved, and ultimately you become Red Seal certified. And this can be a long process, Ella. So, you want to make sure that you have some evidence to support that you have the certificate requirements ready. It's very important. Without a certificate of qualification issued by a Canadian provincial, territorial, federal authority, you will not be qualified under this stream unless you have a LMIA job offer in your skill trade for a total period of at least 1 year.
Can we review the job offer as well?
Yes. Again, we discussed this. The job offer needs to have the start date, employer name and address, the LMIA number, the NOC related to the job. The job offer must be recent, must be in writing. It needs to describe the pay and deductions, duties, and the conditions of your employment, like how many hours of work you're supposed to do. So a work permit on its own is not a job offer, even if it's an open work permit. So your job offer needs to be separate. So don't think that your LMIA or your work permit is a job offer. Okay, this is where the skilled trade workers, so valid job offer, there's some further conditions that need to be met. It needs to be full-time, paid for at least 1 year. We discussed these major groups, so it has to be, the NOC code has to be in one of these groups. And then who can give you a job offer? So the job offer, who can give you a job offer, it has to be an employer who has a positive LMIA, approves the offer and names you and your position on the LMIA. Or if you're currently working in Canada, your work permit that you have needs to be based on a positive LMIA. So these are some of the requirements for that. To give you some examples of a non-valid job offer, 2 companies can hire, you can have 2 offers. And then there's some other LMIA jobs that are exempt. I'm not sure how many skilled trades would be exempt from an LMIA unless it's an intercompany transfer. Demonstrate that you're capable of doing the work that you're offered. This is by qualifying for a license or certificate by the relevant body once you're in Canada. So foreign certificates, foreign trade certificates will not count. They have to be Canadian certification. Any comments at this stage, Ala?
No.
Okay, so next we're going to the language ability. The minimum score required is minimum 5 in speaking and listening, and a minimum 4 in reading and writing. So this means CLB 5 for 2 and 4 for the other 2. Anything below this will not qualify. So for example, like you could have, let's say 10s on everything, except writing you got a 3. You will not qualify, right? So CLB's minimum needs to be met. This is not a question of averages. So that's the language requirement. There is no education requirement, but it is recommended that you should have some proof of education because it can improve your score on the express entry profile. Of course, if your education is from outside Canada, you need to do your ECAs, your equivalencies. And then there's proof of funds. The proof of funds are dependent on the number of family members that you have. I believe a family of 4 needs to show about $27,000. And then there's going to be admissibility things. This is based on your police certificates. Do you have a criminal background? It's also based on your medical. Do you have any communicable diseases? It's also based on whether or not you have violated any previous immigration laws in Canada, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, and then the province of Quebec has its own system. So whatever we talked about today applies to all provinces except Quebec. Any comments at this stage, Ala?
So we can review the proof of funds as well. Well, you mentioned the proof of funds.
Yeah, I mean, family of four is around $27,000. There's a whole chart. I'm not going to go through the whole thing here, but typically a family of four is around $27,000. I believe for one person, it's around 15,000 or 13,000. 15 for one, 27 for four.
So I think the point that we are trying to educate the people working on a trade is that it's not just having a few years of experience working as a plumber. You have to either have a job offer, which is an LMI based, or certificate of qualification.
Yes.
We have a good knowledge of how to apply for certificate of qualification. If you think you guys want more information about how to be qualified, what are the process, you can contact us, and then we can assess your eligibility for the skilled trade as well.
Yeah. So certification is a complicated area to understand. We have some resources that are qualified to speak on that topic, which we can make available to our clients. The other thing to note is you mentioned the requirements, and that is true. But what are the benefits of general categories? It's lower than STEM. The last one that we had for skilled trade occupations was in December 19, 2023, and the score was a 425. So if you feel that you have, a background in skilled trades and that you have either an LMIA job offer or a certificate of qualification, and you're looking to see your options for express entry, then the category-based express entry for trade occupations are scoring really low. So it's a great opportunity there. And the other thing is that on the provincial level, especially some of the OINP programs that we are, mostly familiar with since we're based in Ontario. Some of these streams, especially if you're a student in Ontario, if you have employer support, you don't have to score as high as some of the other categories on the Ontario's points grid. Plus, the human capital priority stream of the OINP also invites people to apply straight off of express entry based on a very low cutoff score. So, and the other thing, Ala, in terms of the Canadian job market, do you have any comments on, pursuing skilled trade? Maybe somebody listening to this video is considering education options in Canada, and they might be looking for a viable career path. Would you like to say some things about skilled trades as a pathway for, success in Canada overall?
That's a great question that you asked, Mustafa, because I was thinking now if you could see the STEM categories, they are a high skilled profession, like a software engineer, data analytics, the score is high, it's 490, and then you need to have a higher level of English or French, and the competition will be higher, but getting a job is more competitive compared to a trade with a lower level of English. And then you will have Canada shows that they have a high demand. They need workers working in trades, and these, as we can see on the screen, these are there is a specific draw for the trades, and these are the positions which are available for the skilled trade.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me or us about what type of education options are available for skilled trades in Canada generally, but since we're in Ontario, can people go to school for these types of trades to learn? So instead of taking a diploma or certificate in supply chain management or project management, as you mentioned, these jobs are not really in high demand in Canada anyway. A lot of people who take these programs, as you know, are struggling to find jobs.
Exactly. Actually, one of our clients, Mustafa, he started with certificate in business in a public college, and then he changed it to maintenance. Mm-hmm. Now he's getting a very good salary, and then he is qualified under a skilled trade now.
And a lot of public colleges provide very good skilled trades programs. How can you, Ala, provide value to potential clients who might be interested in learning more about this? What can Averou Immigration Services do to help them figure out the right course?
Sure. If someone who thinks that they have to have an interest, and then I think they should have some kind of previous work experience as well. But it can be a drastic transition as well from someone could be a lawyer in their home country, but now they are in Canada, and then they want to go to change it to a trade school. We can give them a good guideline, especially if you're inside Canada, and this is the time for you. In order, before making a rush decision, we can give you an advice. If you go and study plumbing, which is very competitive even to get the acceptance in a public college, what is your pathway for permanent residency? What is exactly expecting you? Because before, when you were coming to Canada, maybe none of us was thinking that what is the best pathway for me for permanent residency, and what is the best pathway for me to get a job or land a job. But we as an expert can give you an advice for you for the second time to go for a right choice, which help you to get the permanent residency and land a good job as well.
And the other thing that's great about this option is that obtaining a certificate of qualification can get you a lot of extra points on your CRS score. So not only are you putting yourself on the track towards better employment prospects in Canada that pay well, Red Seals can make a lot of money, are getting more points for your certificate, and you have to score lower. So it's a great option for people considering professions in Canada, and if somebody is already in this profession and has the experience, wants to learn more about how to get the certificate, they can come talk to us. We have the resources to help guide them on that. And then also, if you do already have a certificate, obviously you can come talk to us, and we will be able to, point you in the right direction for pathways, both at the federal and provincial level. Pretty much in every province in Canada has some type of a skilled trade pathway. And then the federal government certainly has its own category for skilled trades as well. Okay, would you like to cover anything else before we wrap up?
No, that's it. I think we try to give good knowledge about the skilled trade, the requirement, how they can apply, what are the two main elements in order to be eligible for the skilled trade, and then we compare the skilled trade with other categories expressed in three. I hope it was informative for the people out there.
All right, absolutely. So again, we'll meet again next week with another topic, and we'll try to dive in deep into that as much as possible. So thank you for watching, if you were watching, and tune in next week for another quick overview of another topic related to Canadian immigration. Okay, Ala.
Thank you so much, Mr.